This year's an
question.
especially bad harvest. This is an interesting one we're going to talk about in our discussion next week. This is one of the worst harvests of many, many years. So that's a contributing factor for sure.
And it's not just the harvest, actually. It's not just the crop yields, but also loads of other factors, according to some farmers that I was reading about. It's, you know, the inflation of farm equipment and other, you know, it's rather like in the US in many ways. There's this
and fuel,
myriad
fuel prices also feed into agricultural prices.
The biggest hit Russian agriculture has taken has been the ban of buying foreign seeds.
Right.
And that's what minus 35% in most of the crops. Because all seeds from the Netherlands, world's leader of genetic modification, you know, they give a lot more yield than regular seeds that you use. And they stopped buying in 2023, and it usually takes 3 years for this genetic engineering to lose potency. And this is year number 3. So this is exactly what we're seeing. And of course, there's a huge, 2 other major factors. Less farmers. Look for those farmers in the front lines, probably in Ukrainian land. And factor number 3, expensive money. Russian farmers cannot take out loans any longer. Not at 29%.
Yeah, that was the other one. Yeah.
And there's an interesting one as well, because Jonathan's question actually is fascinating because it also reflects how I think many European policymakers thinking, as if there's some magic lever that we can pull and we can somehow prompt a Western-style political response in Russia. They're transposing something that doesn't exist and won't work. Having said that, we're seeing this thing, and you've used this phrase for the last 3 years, which is just wait for the moment when resources get scarce and the regime needs to, you know, scrape together what it needs to continue the war and pay the Siloviki. You're going to see bulldogs fighting under a rug. Well, that moment has come because we're seeing businesses being taken away forcibly from minigarchs and from these guys who nominally you would have thought had power in the system or who you're relying on to have a political response. This is now showing that they really have no power because their businesses are being stolen, stripped of assets, given to regime loyalists, or just, you know, stripped for whatever resource they've got. You've even got people in the so-called hierarchy who thought that they were immune to this. You've got people who are now being wrenched out of their positions and their little cozy position given to somebody else. So there's something interesting kind of going on there. There's a cannibalistic process going on. That is perhaps more dangerous than...
quite trying to project, though. I was trying to say, like, if I was Zelensky or if I was his commanders, like, have I exhausted all of the ideas, or not even remotely, but are there any options for striking things that could expedite
I would say
outside of the military context?
I would say starve the war machine of resources, because then Putin will start to steal that off whoever he can. You know, they'll start to rustle it up from the civilian economy. So starving the war machine has a twofold impact. But Konstantin, what are you noticing about this cannibalistic
Konstantin,
process?
before you answer, while you're thinking with your eyes squinted and that great brain is cycling, I just figured out I hadn't pushed this to my channel. This conversation is so good. So if you're hopping in on my channel as well, we are doing a fundraiser for Cars for Ukraine, which is an organization I 1 million support. They are rock solid. And we also have a phenomenal panel right here with both the Jonathans, Fink and Pierce from Silicon Curtain ATP Geopolitics, as well as great experts, Konstantin and Yuri. It's just so here we go, guys, and back to you, Konstantin.
Although just before you answer, I do have to go to the cinema now. So yes,
you're great. It's gonna get even better now that Pierce is leaving.
This is the quickest cameo appearance. Hi, bye. But I'd love to interview either of the other guests on here. If you're welcome, if you're wanting to come on to ATP Geopolitics, just let me know. But thank you for allowing me to.
You're about to be yanked off, aren't you? There, you're about to be pulled off stage by your. You know,
that was
go to the cinema.
Awesome euphemism there. That I was. Yeah. Anyway,
don't go there.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Jonathan. we've spoken a lot. You're a brilliant mind. I agree on 99% of issues with you, not on this one. I think it's not wishful thinking, it's just too idealizing the situation that is going on. You're right. It might happen, and most likely it will happen, but not now. It hasn't started happening. Because look what's happening now. There is a war going on inside Russia for the businesses. As you see, about a year ago, I know that there was a list presented to Prosecutor General of Russia with 750 large companies on the list to be nationalized, basically to be stolen. And they're not stolen and given to the state as an asset. They don't bring value to the state. They're stolen with one purpose: to change ownership. Because this is how it works. State acts according to the law. They very odd laws, okay, but still, there's a court makes a decision. A prosecutor general makes a move. Opens an investigation, gives case to the court. Court makes a decision to annex company, to take it back, to take control of it, and then a few months later, it's either leased or resold to new owners. Okay, so this war has been going on for about 2 years now, and it's intensifying, and we're seeing victims, and sometimes victims, not just money. People don't lose money, they lose lives, they lose freedom. And what you are saying is going to happen when it's not the power agencies, not the Siloviki against the businessmen. It's when Siloviki against Siloviki. It's when we're going to see the conflicts between them, that we know that the end is near. There are a lot of companies in Russia, and there are still a lot of work to be done for the Prokuratura, Prosecutor General, to annex more and more companies. Okay, and I don't see anyone protesting. I don't see anyone standing up and saying, look, what you've done to Kamenchik or Mashkovich or other businessmen, there was just another news minutes ago. Was another large company stolen. Or Galitsky or Tinkov, that's not right. You got to stop that. I haven't seen that happening. Not even close. Not even not anyone is even thinking about that. So it's not there yet.
I completely concur 100% with Konstantin. I have a lot of friends that live in Russia, and they're located in, of course, the Moscow area, St. Pete area, Nizhny Novgorod. You're talking about that western area, the central area of the Moscow region, really. And we're not even close, guys, to the layered effect that is necessary to bring implosion to Russia. Striking, and as President Zelensky says, rightfully so, the Russian people need to begin to feel what we feel. I completely agree. It's accurate. Ukraine was hit extremely hard last night on the energy grid. And there have been warnings today from Lviv, from the mayor. We're not going to be able to turn the heating system on now for weeks, and it's going to be cold. So, Ukrainians are feeling it. So, yes, the Russians need to feel it. The economy needs to feel it. But until you have a breakdown of that inner core, we're just going to keep banging against the same wall. And everything we're doing is working towards that, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. No way.
So I was going to say that, as far as strikes, I agree with both Konstantin and Greg, because solid points. But I do feel that Jonathan brings a valid point too, because there's always more targets to strike. And I think it's important to acknowledge that should a Tomahawk hit Lubyanka or Ostankina, we're going to have some impact. And this is my question for you. Propaganda and like, is it the most important thing? Again, choices for the West to concentrate on providing as much rockets and weaponry to Ukraine as possible, and drone walls and technology and everything, or maybe it's worth spending a couple of bucks to rebuild an anti-Russian propaganda machine.
I was about to say exactly.
Define anti-Russian propaganda machine. Define
something that will provide people in Russia with information, because we see that this is something that this administration said is really not a good idea. We don't want to influence people to talk about democracy and stuff. Forget it. But
I got the answer to that.
Is an important part of defeating Russia is to give people some information.
I've got the answer, and people aren't going to actually consume information if they don't want to hear it, which is what Konstantin said. So you have to package it up in a way that is consumable, which is like sugaring the pill. And I've been saying this almost from day one, is what we should have done, and you may disagree with this, what we should have done is revived something like Kukli and paid a whole bunch of dissident satirists to create little TikTok versions of Kukli, viciously and scatologically vilifying the Russian leadership and the oligarchs
that would be my next
and the
channel.
propagandists.
Yes.
Yeah, but just go for satire, and you inject information through humor and have a really vicious guerrilla effort, and have some of it really hypersexual, hyper scatological, be absolutely brutal in the way that 18th century British political was brutal, in the way that Viktor Shenderovich was pretty freaking brutal, which is why NTV was bought up and shut down, because Putin hated it. He hated it and loathed it, and he realized the power of vicious satire to get to the truth in a way that no, sanctimonious, moralistic, or analytic information will ever hit the target. I don't know. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree, but
well, I will tell you this. You're talking about a complete narrative shift inside a controlled state. Let me give you my first example. My first run to the front line in a war zone, I had some dear friends from the state of Georgia who says, Greg, we respect you for doing that. We know your love for Ukraine, and let me send with you a security guy who is an expert, American special ops. He does security for senators, and let him just go with you, because I'm really concerned. You've never been in a war zone like that. And I said, great. And he goes, we're paying for it. We'll send him. We just want to make sure you're okay. So this guy comes with me, supposed to be for 6 weeks. He makes it 3. He leaves because a missile flies over his head and he gets scared. But that's not the point I want to share. We get over in Kramatorsk, and this guy looks at me, an American special ops war veteran who is a security guard for U.S. senators, looks at me and my partner Zhenya and goes, listen, you do realize Russia's right. I say, excuse me? He goes, you do realize there are bio labs here. This nation is horrible. I said, what nation? He goes, Ukraine. I said, then why are you here? He goes, they paid me to come take care of you. I don't care where I go to take care of you. But they're all wrong. You're fighting the wrong battle, man. I said, so you're telling me almost 30 years of experience, I know the culture, the language, the people, and you're going to tell me that you've read some TikTok and I'm wrong, but you're right? He goes, listen, these Ukrainians are evil. Russia's right. And that was an American, man. Okay. So you now try to break that through a Russian society with social media and that type of fortified wall. It's going to take time.
I don't know, because in the Soviet period, people got their reality from anecdotes. Now, that's not necessarily a clean, efficient kind of way of conveying structured news and analysis, but it kind of gets some essential texture of life across. So I'm not sure. I think that has a much better chance of getting through than any
it's
news
going to
information.
Take time,
but
though.
Konstantin, am I barking up the wrong tree here? Is this a really bad idea, or has that got legs?
You got to understand, Russia is incredibly informationally closed, but at the same time it's open. Let me explain. Russians have all the access to any information in Russian language they want. They get access to the same information I do. Every Russian has a cell phone. He can subscribe or she can subscribe to any Telegram channel. Install VPN, which is not illegal in Russia. I mean, it's difficult. It requires a few steps. It's illegal to advertise VPNs. It's illegal to, do certain actions with them, but it's not illegal to actually have a VPN on your phone. And with VPN, you have access to YouTube, to, I don't know, Facebook, to Twitter, to everything. And there are hundreds, thousands of professional reporters in Russian language who have fled Russia, who left in 2022, 2021. They do wonderful shows. I watch them sometimes. It's all needed for a Russian person to watch and to start thinking. The problem is not in the accessibility to information, or rather not accessibility. The problem is right here. The problem is critical thinking, asking questions. The problem is taking responsibility for their lives. Forget about the country. Russians need to start taking responsibility for their lives. What I'm saying, it's open to all information. Any Russian can get access. Well, most of them can get access to any information in Russian. What I'm saying, it's closed because they're brainwashed. Their minds are closed. Okay, a lot still support Putin.
Should we participate in trying to clean their minds, or should we just let their minds rot?
Well, let me remind you, Yuri, the best Russian propaganda in Russia and all over the world happened in, was it early August, when Vladimir Putin and about 500 reporters flew to the United States, and it was a red carpet, and it was the American president. Okay, some consider him the most powerful person in the world, greeted Vladimir Putin, shook his hand, and there was a military parade thrown in his honor. He was given royal treatment. American servicemen, paid by American taxpayers, by the way, saluted Vladimir Putin. He was protected by the Secret Service. Russian reporters were given visas to visit the United States. They all work for propaganda. Okay, there's no question about that, so we'll understand. But they were given visas. None of Russians who have fled Russia, 3 million of us are given visas to visit the United States. No, we're the bad guys to America. But they are the good guys in the Kremlin, okay? So they created all kinds of reports, all kinds of videos reporting from Alaska, and they created this picture perfect for Russians. And Russians were watching. Mm-hmm. And that was the major event of the summer. And they were saying, look, Putin was right after all. He won. America is at his knees. At first, they were trying to get to us, strip our sovereignty. But now, look, Donald Trump is giving him royal treatment. Putin has won. Russia has won, okay? So forget about everyone who's saying otherwise. We're seeing it with our own eyes, right in front of us. Putin is in Alaska. He went in there. He was given royal treatment. He came back to Russia. He smiled. He talked a lot about that. He bragged, and Russian propaganda made him a legend for that. He's Vladimir the Great. Yes. How can we fight that? You tell me.
Well, and man, I love you, dude. Listen, one of the biggest things was he got into the beast. He rode in the car with Donald Trump, and that was
You know what was the next thing? He flew to China for that big summit, and he brought his beast, whatever it's called,
the Aurus, yeah.
And then he did the same thing. He grabbed the Indian prime minister, and he got him in. And Russians were like, "What?
Exactly.
Look at our president. That's the new type of diplomacy. That's limousine, like the presidential car diplomacy, the beast diplomacy. And look, our president isn't there. He's right there. Donald Trump, Modi, and Putin, 3 of them, you know.
It's the geopolitical version of James Corden, isn't it?
This is the best propaganda there is, can be out there, you know. Now, Yuri, tell me how is there a way to fight that?
I think that there's persuasion, which is I teach rhetoric and public speaking, and when it comes to persuasion, there's 3 kinds of persuasion. There's persuasion of things that people know nothing about, and it's relatively easy. So for me to persuade my students about Russia is a piece of cake because I know Russia better than they do. The other kind of persuasion is to tell people something they already agree with. So if I'm going to come in and tell my students that the college should be free, they're going to be like, yes. So that's great. And the hardest kind of persuasion is to come in and tell people something they don't want to hear. And it is difficult, and there's ways to do it. And you have to explain that there's a problem that they're facing, that their current solutions are not solving. But I feel that the second kind of persuasion deserves attention, because people want, even though it's preaching to the choir demands to be preached to. There's a market for people who want to know, who want to have that information. That's part 1. And part 2 is we're losing kind of like the official point of view, because in America, all we have official is now Donald Trump. And there's no other, Voice of America. I keep coming back to that, but I feel like those kinds of institutions, for me, it's a different actually question, because for me, as a freelancer, do I really want to work for like Voice of America? I had opportunity to apply to go there, but I thought, do I want to move to DC and do all of that? Nah, I don't really want to do that. But I feel like there's a place for them. So I just was kind of wondering about your thoughts on that. But yes, it's difficult because Russian people are, it's scary to know the truth. And to some level, we're going to see this in America more and more, and that's going to be part of the challenge here. But there's a lot of people who want to know the truth. When we look at how many people, Donald Trump is president, but there's half the people that voted against him, and their market too. They also want to know. And I really feel that Telegram is just garbage. It's just so much garbage of all different kinds of things that again, this is maybe my American side, but I just I don't really go to Telegram. I go to like websites that I can see where they're coming from, because Telegram, it's all anonymous. Like we can just kind of surmise who are Z bloggers, who are government, but it could be all written by anybody else. I mean, this is just such an untrustworthy environment. I mean, I know Russia is a jungle, but come on.
Okay, good point. I agree with you on the propaganda, disagree on the Telegram, but let's concentrate on the propaganda. Now, look, you said let's create anti-Russian propaganda machine, right? Well, my point is it's already created. And if you create something out of America, that Russians will not respond to that. And they're not even responding to this news machine. I can't really say it's propaganda, but that's very important news outlets that used to be in Russia, and then they left. ФБК, Khodorkovsky Live, Medusa, Дождь, of course. Out of those 4 outlets, they cover most topics that Russians need to know, and Russians have access to them.
They're junk. They're total junk. They are total.
You think Дождь is junk?
Absolutely. I look at them as kind of vestiges of imperial thinking, people that got pushed out who would like to be on the inside, but they got kicked out. And so Dozhd sits in Amsterdam and rains from there. And Medusa is kind of like, okay, they're, apparently they couldn't exist without major support from anybody else. They're kind of, I don't really read them either, but to me, and Khodorkovsky, I mean, talk about a man with an agenda. Geez, he just wants to be president of Russia. So, I mean, like, they're all biased to, and then so I find this very Russian language is such a suspicious space.
I've got another
Yuri-
take on that as well. I mean, you've got.
But I'm harsh because
you're quite cynical, of course. But then you've also got Makalnaki, who I think is great information, and you've got Alexander.
Yes, and I think the fact that Michael Naki actively raises money for Ukrainian troops is a very clear and easy to tell sign, because Dorsch doesn't do that.
And you've got Alexander Nezvorov, which again, it's very different information, and he is using a propagandistic medium and tone, but it is it's vehemently anti.
Nezvorov is one of us now.
I know, but he paints a very, very dark picture of Russia. But I've asked a couple of people who I know who've been in the West for some time who are Russian. I say, well, these are guys I watch because I find them interesting, right? And they'll say, oh, do you know what? I know what you mean. Like, that information is important, but I don't watch them regularly because it's too dark for me. Right? They're in deep opposition to Putin. They know all these things. They know the war's run. They know all of these things, but they just say it's too dark. And it may be correct, but it's too dark for me to consume, and it drags me down. These are guys who've been in the West for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they're like, I just can't. It's too much. It's too much. I'll listen to Maxim Katz because he gives a much more, a much more gentle critique of reality.
Let me elaborate on that. The media outlets, the big ones that I mentioned, I see them divided into parts. Okay, one part is opinions, another part is news reporting. Opinions, questionable, I agree. Okay, news reporting is great. They find news that are significant, that happen in Russia, and they simply present them. I use this news to do my own analysis. Sometimes I use their shows to do my own analysis, and they point me into the direction. Okay, because Telegram is 60 or 70 different channels, and it's like a non-stop 60 feeds of news coming in, and there are gems out there. There's crap, and I agree with that absolutely, but there are gems, and you really have to know where to look. And the most important thing, critical thinking.
Let's go.
Okay, double checking, fact checking, and analyzing, and I find it very, very valuable resource for me.
That is exactly the phrase I wanted to say. That was going to be my response to this little portion we're talking about here. Is people in general have lost the ability to do critical thinking, critical analysis. This is why we see some of the lunacy. I know we have a Russian American here with Yuri, but I'm an American with a Ukrainian passport as well. In my country, your country now, the ability for critical thinking, especially on that far right MAGA world, has departed the building, and we just believe what we were told. It's why I gave the example of the security personnel with me, and he couldn't even believe it, and I've got him there on the front. It's the ability for people to critically think. So if I can look at a feed, whether it be Telegram or whether it be a news source, or I'm even talking on the phone to somebody, I still need the ability to critically analyze that information, filter it, document it, verify it, and then go forward with it. But we are in a lazy, social media driven, especially an era of education is not focused on as much as it was in the past, and that leads us to a large portion of society that just does not use critical analysis whatsoever, and social media takes complete advantage of that. I can give you many examples of seniors here in the United States, and this goes along with the topic, that absolutely believe everything that comes across their Facebook reel. And I'm talking personal relations where so many people are scammed. They believe everything because it was on their reel. So, Konstantin, to your point, critical analysis.
I will add to that. All you've said, put fear on top of that, incredible fear right now, and you will get Russian people. They rather drink vodka, because if you are sober, you start asking questions yourself, not anyone else. You start with yourself. You start asking questions. Why the hell? what's going on? Something's wrong. And right now, if you are in Russia and you walk out of your door, you see that a lot of things are wrong right away. And you start asking yourself questions, and you start answering, perhaps, and those answers are not, they're hurtful. You start feeling really bad, and it's much easier to grab a vodka and forget about another day.
I love
about
this
everything,
because this really means that vodka was the TikTok before TikTok. Before TikTok there was vodka. How to stop critical thinking? Just drink something or TikTok. Because in the end, all you have to say is just, "Oh, really?" That's where critical thinking begins. You just have to say, like this TikTok that says the Ukrainians are evil, to say, "Oh, really?" Like, people don't even ask that question. They just accept the information. And Konstantin, back to your point, I think it is very interesting to distinguish reporting and journalism and opinion. And yes, at its best, Dorscht and Meduza provide information, but there's very little assessment of the meaning of the information. And that's where, I guess, that's where we come in.
Well, you do the assessment. You start thinking about that. They give you food for thought, and that's how I find them. Okay.
I think we show people, hopefully, how to ask questions, how to wonder.
Yeah, and don't necessarily believe what we're saying. By all means, challenge us and critique what we're saying, and we will adapt what we think when better information comes along. I think that's
I
critical.
love when people challenge me, and after 3 live streams every week, I do usually 5. After 3 live streams, I turn the live stream chat on, at the second part of any live stream, and people ask me questions. And like, I saw one comment here. Someone said, Konstantin, right before the start of the war, he was on a snow hill with his son, saying that Russia would never invade Ukraine. And that's that's true. That's absolutely true. I did that because I never thought. I thought that everyone was saying that Russia would attack Ukraine. It was crazy, because that would be shooting in the food of Russia in the first place, shooting in its own food. And then I don't mind uncomfortable questions. There is not one single question that I cannot answer, or at least try to answer. And if you can convince me that I'm wrong, present me facts, and I believe it, I think about it, then, sometimes I make mistakes. I'm far from perfect. Everyone does. So, that'd be great if someone challenges. Just when they challenge, I like people present reasoning behind challenges, behind questions,
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a lot of what we have to deal with is, listen, discourse is how we improve. Challenging is how we're improving. The ability to say, I think I was wrong on that one, and this is the new information I now have. The ability to do that makes you a much more credible source. Unfortunately, we do not get a lot of analysis in the challenges. It's emotionalism driven by media that is already based. So it's a challenge to try to hone it down, hone it in, and help people learn, grow, and understand. There's a comment in my chat right now, and I'm a U.S. senior citizen, and I watch seven different sources of info in Russia, Ukraine daily, and I critical think my way to my beliefs. You find that the lies are pretty corny sounding. So Zenith Dawn, it's just an accurate statement there. You have to still use your noodle.
That's it. And I got to apologize here. There's some bots in the and trolls in the comments.
Hopefully they're the ones contributing to the fundraiser.
Well, I suspect not. I suspect not. But some of them are coming in from Jonathan's channel. It's always live streaming this, and I can't get rid of them because I don't have control over that. So hopefully we'll weed them out a little bit later. But we just ignore what they say because it's really of no particular value whatsoever.
Well, with trolls, what can we do? There are trolls out there. That's it. We just ignore them. I mean, you can't ban every troll.
I've stopped
Actually,
taking
this
them
is-
seriously.
It's really kind of a thing that people don't seem to take to heart. But if you're listening and watching this and you're seeing a troll, you don't like them, you can ban them yourself for yourself.
Yeah.
Take
that's
responsibility for your own chat.
Ever
Well,
since
yeah.
getting annoyed at the very first
Right.
troll comment, the one that
Well,
really
there-
got for me was apparently it was a lady. I don't know if it was real or not. And she said, I've watched some of your stuff. She said, and honestly, someone with your teeth shouldn't be doing podcasts.
Makes no was Jonathan.
That's all right.
no
They're in my
worries.
chat right. They're in my chat right now, calling me a one-handed nut job. So my mods are taking care of it, and I sprung this on them. And so, really, thank you to all the moderators. Moderation is so important. I don't mind people coming in and giving different opinions or different comments, but if you go personal, then that's out of line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on the other hand, that seems to be the pathway in the United States for social media stardom. You have to accuse, I don't know, a French president wife of being a man, and then you get, now that's the level to break through. Or this Candace Owen character, I think I'm almost interested enough to listen to her, because she sounds like she's coming up with the craziest stuff. And in the sphere that we live in now, crazy has like value of its own. Like the you get certain gold coins for being extra crazy. She said that Charlie Kirk came to her in a dream. That's some high level stuff there. I don't think we can compare.
No, and unfortunately, when the example is led by the top, and this is one of the things I'd love to hear your two guys take on this, actually, because this is what I try to share on my channel quite a bit. Whether it's the United States or even some other nations, there's often a response that is very, I'm hearing an echo now, but I'm good with it. There's often a response that's very emotional, derogatory, name calling. And I know that's what you're referring to there, Yuri, and it comes straight from the top and then it filters down through the media. I mean, whether you disagree with the governor of California or not, his name is still Governor Newsom. It's not Governor Newscum. And, there should be a sense of respect in leadership, even if you completely disagree 100%. And the Russians are masters of it. They're masters of communicating on these high levels and can look you in the face and say, I hate your guts. We're going to do everything to destroy you, and flatter you at the same time. And that it's a skill. And we've lost that, unfortunately, especially in the United States. It's just disrespect.
I don't know. Konstantin, up to you.
No, I'm what can I add? It's brilliant.
I find that I sometimes have a hard time communicating with people who live like in Russia or in Ukraine, because they are so political that their whole language consists of jargon, of different names for different things. And I'm like, what is going on here? Can somebody just name a thing? You're like, what's going on? So I think that exists in all language spaces where we have people who are like nerding out.
But they're not disrespectful.
That's true.
Typically, that's my point. And when you have a segment of society out there and they're listening, okay, well, but
I mean, are you saying I can't call Donald Trump an orange mammoth?
No, you can call him whatever you want. You're not the president of the United States trying to bring peace to the world.
So it's the power ratio that you're talking about.
I'm talking about a precedent is set by leadership in the world. And when that precedent, especially coming out of the United States, sets it as, we're going to be derogatory. If you don't believe like we believe, you're wrong and you're an idiot. And I'm right about everything. And let's go ahead and reelect me in 2028 and give me a Nobel Peace Prize while you're at it. If that's the rhetoric that you push, then you're going to have a negative response down the line, and it's hard to stop it. And then when you move that to international relations, we're not on the same playing field.
And now you've got Norway potentially dusting off its navy just in case the US investigates, because
Venezuela is in real trouble. I tell you what,
didn't get a Nobel Prize. Let's welcome Christine to the stage here. Thanks so much for dialing in from Kiev.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hi everyone. Christine here from Kyiv.
Hi,
And
Christine.
I will take this opportunity to bow out because I have to go and recording an interview with the Channel 24 in English. So subscribe to Rashkin Report in English. And Jonathan, thank you to you for this fundraiser, for bringing everybody together. It was a great honor and pleasure to speak with everybody. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Slava Ukraini.
Immense pleasure. Heroям слава.
Героям слава.
And Yuri will exit the stage any moment now. Christine,
This is fun watching him find the end stream button.
this is, he's gone.
It worked.
Yeah, it's been a tough night, hasn't it? So we're not necessarily gonna. I mean, I don't know how tired or not tired you are, but it's been one of the biggest strikes, hasn't it, of recent times? Just last night. What's the mood?
Still the same, I guess. Still the same. For those who don't know, well, probably nobody knows, but we've been sleeping in the hallway for quite a while now, and so we are used to nights like that. And actually, like, I just closed the door at night when it got too loud, and my son was able to sleep through all of it because we have like a fan, a air humidifier, purifier that makes this like white noise, and so. Yeah, that's how we typically can sleep through most of it. Yeah, today was a loud night, and so I mostly can tell you before I read the news whether those were just drones or drones and missiles, based on the sounds that I hear. Whenever there are drones, they mostly come to Kyiv through the north where we live, and we live pretty up high, so we welcome all those Shaheds here in Kyiv. So it's typical that it's loud here, but we just learn to live with it, to adjust to it, and to this way we can still live our normal lives. Yeah.
And that's one of the curious dissonances, isn't it? During the day you can go and have a hipster cafe and a nice coffee and a meal, and people go to their jobs, and that's that weird juxtaposition between actually normality in many respects and 21st century normality, and then this absurdity that's kind of going on, this horrific kind of absurdity. Even mobile phones. Now, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was you. I think it was Elena Trego posted recently that she'd been at a conference speaking to some like security experts, people who are living and breathing and watching the war, but they never actually used the Air Raid app. And they weren't quite sort of really appreciating this distance between 21st century technology and convenience and the madness of what you're seeing here, which is, something which is similar to, say, the London Blitz. This weird conjunction of modernity and primitive brutality.
Yeah, we mostly don't have the Air Raid alerts, like the app on. I have a notification, but it's like without any sound because it's just too much. And again, they will be too disturbing, especially during the night. So that's how we maintain our sanity, so to speak. And when there are these attacks, so there are a couple of things that I always think. Yeah, so of course I always think, please, I don't know, whatever powers there are, protect us, and hopefully this will not land on us, on our heads, and we'll just keep sleeping. But at the same time, I think that it will not land on us, but it's coming for someone, and it's a very tough thing to face, to deal with, because you don't want it to fall on you, but you know that it will hurt eventually, most likely someone, a family just like mine, just it's in some other part of Kyiv. So this is not easy to handle. But on the other hand, we just have to also remember that Russians want us like depressed, they want us feeling miserable, and so we cannot give it to them. We cannot succumb to despair and all of that, and we just have to do what we can do to support the army, to keep working, support the army, and hopefully help finish this war. And this is why I'm here today, right? Because I think it's important to support this initiative and help our defenders, help us, protect us, shield us. That's our duty.
I am Russian. I'm not in Russia. I left after the start of the war, and I don't really know what to say. You know, it really makes me cry. Please forgive us.
You know, I don't hate all Russians. Maybe some people say that they do, some Ukrainians do. But I also know some really genuinely good people who come from Russia. Some of them, like many of them, raise funds for the army, for our army now. Some of them wholeheartedly hope that this regime will fall and Russia will change. So I try not to judge, you know. I sort of followed your work and I know what you're about. So thank you for saying this, and it matters, and it's very important for us to know
Thank
that
you.
people still
Thank
care about us.
I want you to know, when I came to Tashkent, it was very difficult because basically my country chewed me up and spat me out. And I started getting Russians together, and for a few months, for 3 or 4 months, we were just organizing a support group for people like me in my shoes. But then I felt that that's not enough, and I started reaching out to Ukrainians living in Tashkent, and I started inviting them to our group, and many refused, obviously, but some came, and you know, my goal is to get Ukrainians and Russians on one table so they can break bread and somehow make amends.
You know, so what I think about all of this, history tells us that we can like, I don't know, come to some kind of a reconciliation after generations, right? After enough time passes. But the first step would have to be what you just did. You apologized, right? I feel like many Russians, they do not realize. And until they realize, until they accept, until they repent, I don't think we can reconcile. But I hope it will come eventually. And of course, there are people who suffered more in this war than I did, right? There are people who lost their loved ones. I'm lucky I haven't. My husband, he's been called up. He's serving, but he's in Kyiv and he's not in the trench. I lost some friends. He lost many people in his brigade, but we haven't lost any family member. And so this is someone who hasn't lost a family member saying this. And I suspect that other Ukrainians who have suffered more might be of a different opinion.
This is what I stand on.
Yes, great.
I think that they have to take responsibility first, realize what's been done, take responsibility and repent.
Jonathan, we just witnessed something beautiful, man. And I hope that people that are watching this live stream and we'll see it later on replays. You know, I've been since 94 working in Russia and Ukraine. And I know the sentiment on the front lines with soldiers and people that have lost people. And I've lost many, many, many friends. So just a powerful example there. So thank you, Christine, and thank you, Konstantin. That was human. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this is not very upbeat. You know, maybe that was not how the stream was meant to go. But yeah, that's the situation on the ground, and that just, I don't know. I'm just trying to keep things real, and yeah.
You know, situation stopped being upbeat on February 24th, 2022. That was the end of all upbeatment, you know, for, I don't know for how many long now. How much longer?
But I just mean, you know, like to cope with all of this, we still have to find something to be happy about and something to appreciate. Otherwise, it's just too easy to go down this hole of despair, you know, back to the same thing. And this is why you see Ukrainians smiling a lot, laughing a lot, right? Enjoying their lives, because that's just what you have to do. And humor is a big part of this, making jokes, even about the war. That's just how we cope. That's how we are able to function.
That's it. And there are. I mean, I saw this interesting video. There was Mark Fagan actually on Ostrov Zmini. We actually took a trip to Snake Island, and you know, I think that's interesting. You know, to take that information, to take sort of that version of the truth, but to package it up in really quite an effective way so that you can actually get people to listen to it and pay attention. I think that's quite an art, and we need to use that. Now, not everyone watches Mr. Nevzorov, and he's extremely contentious in many quarters, but he is injecting a certain, you know, useful piece of information sometimes into an audience that, if you weren't doing that, they could be susceptible to Russian, you know, propaganda. I think Parnikov does the same, and this is how he describes it. It's not for everyone. I don't expect many Ukrainians to tune in, because that's not, you know, and I don't even really expect ethnic Russians necessarily to tune in. But there's whole space of the ex-Soviet space of Russian speakers that, if you don't talk to them, then there's a vacuum there. They're potentially going to fall prey to propaganda materials in Russian language produced by the enemy. So you have to kind of take them on, and you have to fill that space.
Yeah, that's kind of reminiscent of books by Peter Pomerantsev, right?
Yeah.
And what he did, what his main character did in the most recent book. I don't recall the title of the book, but like I read both of those.
They're great books.
Yeah. So it's useful, and in this war, despite all of the technologies involved, right, we can still say that human potential, the people, are still the key resource, and both for Ukrainians and Russians. Of course, Russians have more people, and they are able to pay more to incentivize Russians joining the army, which we are not able to do. And we use technology to somehow compensate for that. But still, people are the biggest asset. And if we can, I don't know, sway the opinion of some part of the population, I think it's worth trying.
Absolutely.
And like working with the minds, right? Working with the minds of people, minds and maybe hearts.
And then there's winter coming up. I mean, this is.
I apologize, Jonathan. Friends, it's becoming too difficult. You know, I've been to Kyiv many times. I spent almost a year in Odessa, Kharkov, and Zaporizhia. I can't imagine. I'm sorry. I'm becoming too emotional. I gotta bow out. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, you've been here for much longer than I could have hoped for. And
I was expecting to be alone here. I don't know what has happened. Why there's such a crowd here?
This is it.
Yeah, but thank you.
The whole stream's turned into something of a group dynamic. So we'll go with it. But yeah, Konstantin, you've been with us for almost 2 hours.
Konstantin, thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
I think we need people who can be bridges, and maybe you're one of those people. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. And we've got a new guest. Do you want to introduce yourself and say a couple of words? Both of you. Actually, Christine, you haven't had a proper introduction either. If you could both sort of say a couple of words about yourself for the audience that may not necessarily be aware of your work.
Well, I'm not sure what to tell about myself. I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and then an accidental and unwilling volunteer and fundraiser. I started as just like informing people on LinkedIn about what was happening in Ukraine, and then it turned into fundraisers because I was asked for help by our defenders, and so that's what I've been doing ever since.
And you're a strong voice on key platforms as well, such as LinkedIn and so on. So I think it's super important to be active in the English language space as well, which isn't necessarily, it's not the X, it's not places, but it reaches a significant set of potentially thoughtful people if they're not totally disengaged.
Well, yeah, I find LinkedIn a very powerful platform. I don't have time for more platforms because I have a full-time job and a family, and like everyone else, so it's not easy. I don't have a team helping me with all of this, and so I only do LinkedIn. But I would say that it's very impactful, and the people there, the audience, is smart, educated, and those are for the large part decision makers, right? And so this is why I feel like it's important to appeal to them and to explain what's happening. And I had some really great feedback from those people.
Fantastic. Now, what about Renegade Chungus? Say a couple of words about yourself.
Hello. I'm Renegade Chungus. I run a small community YouTube channel. We fundraise for Ukrainian soldiers. I've been a part of 2 Car for Ukraine fundraisers, Easter Pasanki, Summer Sunshine campaign. I do a little on-the-ground independent journalism from Sacramento from the Ukrainian perspective. I have a lot of friends there with the Sunflower Society, and we network aid. I had a few Ukrainian friends before the war, but nothing to the point of being like, something to say I was part of their community at the time. But I've interjected myself and been adopted by the community here in Northern California. I think the really trigger for me to get into it was the full-scale invasion, of course. I knew about the invasion of the Donbass, but I didn't pay close attention to it. What really caught my eye was the level of brutality coming from the Russian Federation at the beginning of the war. I remember seeing an unguided rocket hit an apartment complex and children crying, and that was it. I was all in. It was a life-changing experience for me. I've dedicated my life to help the Ukrainian people. We covered numerous topics on my YouTube channel, anything from domestic issues. Right now, we're covering the ICE riots or ICE protests, and also immigration issues that are happening in the United States on my channel. And I'm not some super philosophic or I'm just a normal guy. So what we do is we go on an adventure ourselves on the channel, learn together, try to educate each other, and support each other, support soldiers on the way, down to the individual soldiers sometimes, depending on the personal relationship and whatnot.
Fantastic. Well, we'll touch upon some US issues in a minute, but I think stick with Ukraine at the moment. I mean, we're coming up to the winter. And last winter, I think, was surprisingly resilient, as it were, and possibly because with, air defense, Russia just couldn't. Well, they did break through. They did destroy some thermal plants, etc. But the light stayed on, and the heating generally stayed on, not in all areas, but in the key cities. It feels like you may be gearing up for a tough winter here, but this time it seems Ukraine has the ability to strike back as well. So, what are your feelings going into winter, and your thoughts of Ukraine's capability to punch Russia back?
I'm not sure.
That's for you,
Christine. That's for you. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think we are much better prepared this time around. And nothing helps to get through the cold of winter, like the news of Russian refineries on fire. That warms your heart and soul and body, like nothing else. And so I hope that this continues. I also hope that instead of drones, because predominantly those are drone attacks so far, that we will finally see more flamingos in action. Yeah, we had some strikes now confirmed. They were used flamingos combined with Neptunes, I believe, and it turns out that was back in August, as our president said. And so I just hope we'll see more of that, because the payload is considerably higher, and that means damages that will be much harder to recover from for the Russian energy sector. And so we want to see more of it. It's really brightens up the mood when you wake up to the news about another hit on a refinery. What can I say? Schadenfreude, yes, is a predominant feeling these days. But yeah, that's just how it is. It's a payback, and we are finally able to give back in kind. And I think it's very important that we have our own weapons. This is something we were supposed to be focusing from the very start. I think we don't have any restrictions on the use of our own weapons, and nobody can tell us that we shouldn't strike this or that, right? And so that's an extremely important development, a crucial development.
That was a key thing we talked about earlier, which is in previous years, one gets the impression that whether it was sort of Biden's team or whether it was people in Berlin or whatever, it's like, now hang a second, talking to Zelensky and Yermak, you can't do that, or maybe don't do that because then you're closing the door to negotiations, etc. I think those delusions about the potential for negotiations have kind of disappeared, and any thought of trying to restrict Ukraine from doing what it needs to do. That's, in some ways, we talked about war fatigue, and actually this is playing in Ukraine's favor, because it's like everyone's so sick of Putin and they realize that he's not going to stop for anything. There's nothing we can offer him to persuade him to stop, even, promising chunks of Ukrainian land. I think most people now realize that that's not going to work, even though they've been laboring under that delusion for many years that, yeah, just give him Crimea, just give him Donbass, and he'll go away and leave us all alone. I think
he'll have more people for the next time, for the next round. Yeah,
I think we finally figured out that that's not going to work. And even, Trump and certain figures around him have kind of clocked that that's not going to work.
Jonathan
as well. We have Nick has joined us. Nick, hi.
Let me answer that.
Greg, please.
Well, no, go ahead, Nick. Welcome. And I just want to answer Jonathan's questions while it's hot, because the question was double-sided. And Christine talked about Christine, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Christine talked about the great things we're doing affecting Russia, which needs to continue every day and will. Okay. But the reality is, additionally, it's going to be tough for Ukraine as well. And I love to go at the winter time and it's the hardest times. These Shaheeds, some of these third generation Shaheeds now, they're now running with independent antenna systems and multi-layer camera systems. They're adapting. Now, at the same time, Ukraine is adapting. And we can see over the last week to 2 weeks that, sure, they'll hit anything, any target. It's irrelevant to them. But we have seen an uptick on the focused strikes on thermal power plants, gas lines, gas facilities, electrical producing stations, substations. And I mean, so we need to call the facts the way they are. And Ukraine is getting them up and running quickly. I mean, Kyiv last night, a massive strike, and they're getting it repaired quickly. And Ukraine needs, this is where air defense and drones and stability comes in to allow time to repair. Once again, this is where you come down to the geography of Russia. It's so big. And I think that's why President Zelensky a couple of days ago says, okay, you're going to black us out or attempt to black us out, then we will also black out Kursk and Belgorod. So which Ukraine can black out Kursk and Belgorod without a question. No question. If we can strike refineries at 1,500 kilometers, I promise you we can black out Kursk. It's just, it's right across the border. So it's going to be interesting to see how the repair process, the air defense, the protection, so that Ukraine has the ability and time to keep their critical infrastructure running. And that's what we have to watch.
Well, I think I looked into the energy situation in Ukraine, and repairs have been mostly done.
Yeah,
from the
amazing.
Previous damage. And also the nuclear power reactor, the last one that was just like under repairs, that is coming back online. And so without hits, we could actually even export some energy. But of course, we don't know what's coming. And what is also peculiar about these most recent strikes is that Russia is now targeting a railroad, right? And
that's a big one. Good call right there.
Locomotives. So trying to take out our logistics, apparently. And so we needed to come up with a system of probably detecting threats and maybe notifying the train drivers of the danger, so that there has to be some kind of a system, and of course protection, air defense for the railway now, because that's a new target, a new tendency that we can see, and also some manufacturing facilities I remember like foodstuffs. I think hummus factory has
yeah,
been,
it's so
has been
yeah.
yeah, many have said that it's like their favorite hummus, and so yeah. So they are targeting the railways, so the logistics, the energy, and probably just also trying to inflict economic damage by hitting those production sites.
And then you
Yeah,
tandem more. Great point on the locomotives there, or the engines, whether it's electrical or diesel.
Yeah.
Additionally, then what? So so people out there watching understand, then what Russia does is they double down on that. So it was like, I think yesterday or the day before, the narrative started spreading through social networks that, Kyiv, Chernigiv, Sumy lines are down, Ukroznista, it's over, no passenger trains are going, it's all closed. And, and they had to come back and say, okay, that's not true. We've got some issues. We've fixed them quickly. Trains are running. So they take advantage of everything to sow fear. And that's what we also stand against and fight against.
Yeah, well, but we are better prepared, and even mentally, we are much better prepared for all of this. Like we were told that we should expect a tough winter, and like several days ago, my kid went and charged all of our lamps, all of our lights, power banks, everything, because like winter is coming. If he is like 12 and he knows what to expect from Russians and from this winter, we just have to prepare, and mentally, especially, we have to be more resilient. And yeah, if it takes a rough winter, if it takes several cold, even weeks, and blackouts, to withstand, to endure, so we can then win, I think it's worth it. And so we are prepared, and we can get through it. And there are people. We should also remember that our defenders, they're not complaining, right? Their conditions are much tougher than ours, and they are there, and they can say, "Oh, it got too dangerous here. I better move to a safer region, a safer city, or maybe abroad." They can't do it. They don't have the luxury, and so we don't have the luxury to relax and to complain too much, and we have to toughen up.
And it's cold, and of course it's cold now as well, and getting colder, and month on end. That wrecks people's health. It's not just on the mental nerves. It's physically is going to take its toll. Let's ask Nick to introduce himself, because we haven't interacted before, and I'd love to know a bit more about what you do, and welcome you to the stream.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm delighted for inviting me, and delighted to be here, and delighted to see faces I know. So this is wonderful. My name is Nick Suter. I am the host and executive producer of In Time. It is In Time, not On Time. But we are a news and educational channel. We cover Ukraine a lot. Recently, unfortunately, we've been stuck covering the U.S. a lot, because as a news channel, and what's been going on in the United States is trying to convince people that what's going on in Ukraine affects the rest of the world is very difficult, as I think everybody on this panel knows. If Putin is not going to stop at Ukraine. He has made that crystal clear. He wants to reconstitute all of the former Soviet satellite republics. He is, as far as I can tell, and this analogy gets so overused, it's almost meaningless, but he's essentially the next Hitler. And at least if he's allowed to continue. So convincing people of that is difficult, but then you get what's happening in the US, which affects Ukraine dramatically. What Trump's mood has a great impact on what support the US is going to get, what support the EU is going to get, and how Trump is going to either help or undermine those activities. So we've been focused recently more on the US because of how concerning what's going on over there is. But that's it. We're a news and educational channel. In Time Show, youtube.com/In Time Show. And, we also have Commander Lance McMillan on for downtime. Usually it's just like a fireside chat. We just Is swearing okay? Well, I have to avoid. Oh God, Mr.
I'm leaving at the top of the hour. It's my son's senior day for football, so that's why I've got my football shirt on and I'm ready to have the festivities.
I put this in the live chat. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but you were asking for a challenge, and so I challenge you to count to 180.
Count to 180 backwards.
Without exceeding it. Yeah. So at any rate, oh dear, now I've forgotten what the occasion was to swear, but oh yeah, we have a Commander Lance McMillan staged the Iraq War out of CENTCOM for the 5th Fleet. Speaking of CENTCOM, CENTCOM is in Qatar. The U.S. has made its first ever deal with another country for that country to have a foreign air base in the United States. It looks like Qatar is going to be having an air base in, I think it's Idaho. That is very concerning for a number of reasons, not any of the reasons I've seen on Twitter. Everyone's like, oh my God, another 9/11. Qatar had nothing to do with 9/11. They wouldn't go near 9/11 with a 10-foot pole. I'm not concerned about that. I have other concerns. Having said all that, that's Commander Lance McMillan. We do that every Thursday. And Tuesday, we usually do sort of a rundown of the news, and we do breaking news, and we're very proud of the breaking news we do. We work with social media. When oh dear Lord, my brain is still in neutral. When what's his name invaded Russia, the mercenary group.
Prigozhin.
Well, Wagner. Prigozhin. Thank you. We had been covering that for 4 hours before mainstream media, and we'd get people in saying this isn't real. We're like, no, here are the pictures. This is where he is. We got him, and so that's what we do, and we're very proud of that. So check us out on In Time Show or In Time Show Official on YouTube.
And I think there's been quite a few comments, people asking, like, can you share all the details of all the people who've been on and the channels and so on? So what we'll probably do is we'll pull a whole list together of everyone who's appeared, their channels, their comms, where they post, so you can get more information, follow them, and so on. We'll pop that on the channel tomorrow when I've had a chance
Jonathan,
to sort of pull that all together.
Me go ahead. Let me probably go ahead and take this, because in 2 minutes I do have to leave for the game festivities. My son is a senior, and it's dad can't miss this one. So I want to thank everybody from on my channel, all of your channels. Christine, it's nice to meet you. I know everybody else. Renegade, bless you, bro. And Nick, count to 360. Good luck. JP, Jonathan Fink, I love you. JP, I tolerate. And but this was great, and I'll be listening as you go forward. And you guys out there, make sure the link is here in the bottom, that we support Cars for Ukraine in this campaign for the Autumn Harvest Silicon Curtain. And we thank all of you. So if you're on my channel, I need to kick it off because I've got to switch this over. So please go over to Silicon Curtain or End Time Independent News.
We are not live.
Okay, so please go to Silicon Curtain. So how can I refer that to Silicon Curtain?
Yeah.
I'll figure that out. So anyway, thank you, everybody. I'm going to try to now push you over there.
It's still streaming on JP's channel, but it's on mine.
And it's on ATP Geopolitics. There were some memberships, F-Oink, Adam Rounds, Papa Dutch is in the chat. Picture says 1,000 words if not true. Papa Dutch, Petra Olsen, Swedish Non-Smoking Initiative, caring for Ukraine. Dunk on you. Thanks to the mods. F-Oink, he's in here dropping TikTok Gorlika. And Pete Watson, Australian 20, said on JP, Slavo-Ukrainian pro-activists soon be there in Ukraine to do my job. Good for you, Pete Watson. Thank you for that. And Dutchy for a ticket in the new train. Thank all of you guys. And I'll see what I can do now to push you guys over to Silicon Curtain. So thank you.
Well, that's fabulous. Greg, thank you for everything you do. And
my pleasure. Thank all of you. Thank all of you. Christine, nice to meet you. I'll be in Kyiv in a couple of months and look you up.
Sure.
We'll see you soon, Greg. Love you.
All right. Thank you, brother. I'm gonna hang out while I try to flip this over somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We'll watch you while you try to find the button, the exit button. That seems
No,
to
this
be
is
the
like
most
this is like
entertaining.
looking at Yuri Rashkin trying to end the stream. So I'm gonna figure it out.
How do I get out of here?
Since Greg brought this up, I did want to point something out, which is to switch to we'll go back, but just to highlight the fundraiser for a minute. So yeah, we're not streaming this on In Time. The reason is In Time doesn't normally do fundraisers where we stick to education and politics and stuff like that for a number of reasons. I personally, on the other hand, will go on to only the ones that I really support, and I'll happily do those. And one of the reasons I'm coming on here, I had heard a story of how difficult it was for one of the units to try to get confirmed to be able to get a car from Ukraine, because they were vetting to make sure that everything was going to the right place. And when I donate to a charity, I always check what percentage is actually going to where it's supposed to go. How much are they vetting the people they're working with? And in this particular case, the unit needed a car that had some of the armor removed. And the reason was because they needed speed, not the armor. And Car for Ukraine actually made those changes, and they add gun mounts, and they do whatever each individual unit needs. So I don't often do fundraisers. Again, In Time doesn't as an organization. I personally don't often do it, and this one was one I was delighted to do, because I can't count. I thought I was going to be on for a whole hour. It looks like everybody's just on. So this is great. I'm going to be on. I'm going to have we're all going to have a great time. But I just thought that this was a really good organization that is clearly, they vet the units. They make sure they don't. It's got to be a challenge. You want to get the cars and you want to get everything over there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But the reality is sometimes you have to slow down to make sure that you're doing it right, and to make sure that because if you get the wrong car to the wrong place, it doesn't help. And it's amazing. Most of us are sitting there going, don't they need tanks? Don't they need... Everybody who's heard and talked about Ukraine understands why we're talking cars and not tanks and not... But having said that, cars is really what they need. So this is a great place for donating and helping out, where it's going to be a help between that and Doctors Without Borders, organizations like that. So I was delighted to be invited. So thank you.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here, and I'm hoping that all the new faces that we meet here and I can interact with, and then other people can interact with each other. I think there's going to be quite a bit of that afterwards. So people starting to get each other on their channels and stuff. So it's got a great network effect as well. And that's what I felt, Christine, when I was in January in Kiev. It kind of reminded me a little bit about Silicon Valley and when I worked there, which is this sense that people who are actually in action, people who are actually trying to get stuff done, there's this hyper networking thing, and people exchanging details and trying to, cutting the nonsense, cutting the sort of the games, and just trying to figure out, well, okay, is this useful? Is this person useful? And how can we just get to the action as quick as possible?
There's actually there's sort of like a very tight community now, like of volunteers. So quite often I meet someone new, and we have like 10 people that we know in common. We don't know each other, but we know many other people, especially when it comes to foreigners. So I feel like it's a very tight community, and everyone knows each other. Like there was an event by John Sweeney last weekend that I attended, and there were many people that I knew there, and there were some new faces, but still, like, we are all connected, and it helps to meet new people and to learn their stories, to learn their skill sets, where they are from and everything, because then later on you might make connections, right? You're in a conversation with someone else, and it turns out that this person that you just met the other day is a perfect fit for whatever they need, whatever project they are starting in Ukraine. And so I find it very helpful, and that's what I'm trying to do also, to sort of build these bridges between people, between companies, foreigners and Ukrainians, and just to help us understand each other better.
Well, Greg was talking earlier about how I am getting a bit of an echo too myself. I don't know where that's coming. Well, there you go. Thank you. So Greg was talking earlier about how Russia was good at what I'm going to call propaganda. He was talking about how they can flatter while undercutting you at the same time, and it was a skill that we don't have. But propaganda, which is the antithesis of education. Education, the goal is to understand the world better so that we can affect positive change on it. Propaganda is the opposite. It's taking away people's ability to interact with their own world. And I think one of the best tools against propaganda is networks. It's knowing people that you trust who have common sense, who have an education, who have studied things, and you can say, hey, could you explain Ukraine to me a little bit? Could you explain this topic to me a little bit? Why is this happening in America? And it's somebody that you know and trust. And I think it's going to be sort of grassroots communities and organizations that are going to have the most impact on both fighting against Putin and Russia, and fighting against what certainly looks like a totalitarian regime rising in the United States.
You know, something important, I think that I would like to add that if someone is against Ukraine or not fully on board with helping Ukraine, it's like extremely helpful to have them come to Ukraine and visit the country. Most of the people who come here meet real people, see the situation for themselves. They're just converted, and it just happens pretty much instantaneously. So we have to get more people in Ukraine, and then have those people become our ambassadors, and bring this information back home and explain how it is, because they will be trusted. They are foreigners. They are not biased like me. Of course, what I will always say that everything is great in Ukraine and so on. I'm Ukrainian. I cannot be impartial, right? I'm biased by default, and so I won't be trusted as much as a foreigner who visited Ukraine, saw everything with his or her own eyes, and came back to report on what they've seen.
I had noticed that when Zelensky was in the White House and he invited Vance, and the thing is, I think what you just said is in fact so powerful. The reason Vance didn't want to go is because he knows once he goes, he can't defend his positions anymore. Once he goes and actually sees it, that's why Vance was so hostile to the idea of actually going to Ukraine. But that was the first thing Zelensky said. Have you been there? Do you want to come? And Lindsey Graham, who is well, I'm not going to get into my opinions on Lindsey Graham, but nonetheless, he wasn't that pro-Ukrainian until he went there, and he came back and go, bye, Greg, have a good one. So, finally, okay. Now I feel like I can. Okay, now that he's gone,
now you can relax. Now we got four.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of it, Nick. You're not getting rid of me, Nick. I'm like a tick on your back.
Here we go. So, yeah, no, I agree with you very, very strongly. I think for two reasons. One, in general, people don't understand what a war zone looks like, both the resiliency and the suffering without going there. And B, the Ukrainian people are more resilient. And this goes back a ways. If you actually look at history, the fiercest Soviet fighters, I mean, to the U.S., to everyone else, they were Soviet. To the Russians, they were Ukrainian. The Russians understood that they were drawing their best fighters out of Ukraine. There's a reason they had most of their nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And when Ukraine split off from, as the Soviet Union collapsed, it became the third largest nuclear power in the world. Ukraine has always had a resiliency and integrity that has you can see it through history. It's been recognized as Ukraine has struggled to be independent, and I think it's hard to see that and not want to be a part of it.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? And how many experts thought Ukraine would fall. So-called experts, of course, who had no experience of Ukraine whatsoever, but they may have more experience of, Russia's military ecosystem, and they've imbibed all of those narratives and so on, and not intentionally sort of reproducing that, but essentially echoing either delusion or propaganda. Whereas people who'd actually trained with the Ukrainian army itself from the 2000s onwards had a very different view that no, they'll fight and they'll have a very good chance of not falling. It's a completely sort of different impression from the reality.
I
Yeah,
think
it reminds me of Sorry, it reminds me going back to a clip I saw of a little Russian lady who was absolutely berating some of the people online about the old Soviet Union and who the Ukrainian people were, and that the Russians didn't have the capability to make nails without the Ukrainians back in the Soviet Union days, and among other things of pleasing their women and whatnot in the conversation. She was very, very vulgar about it. I don't know what happened to her, but it was a very interesting conversation she was having.
Yeah, what I wanted to say that Ukrainians, we are just very peaceful, and it could be misleading. So we want, for the most part, to just be left alone, left to our own devices, so we can live the way we want. Some friends of mine say that we are a bit like Italians in this sense, that we like to enjoy life, enjoy food, just have a good life, but also take care of your home, right, and arrange everything and take care of everything around you. But if you try to bully us, if you try to conquer us, then we become fierce. Then we just don't tolerate it. Yeah, so we are peaceful until you poke us. And so some people were afraid of poking the Russian bear, but it's actually much more dangerous to poke Ukrainians, I would say.
Don't poke the Yanota or the.
They say we have this community of like a sort of informal think tank, and they call themselves like honey. What is it? What's
honey
the name?
Badgers.
Honey badgers. Yeah. So Ukrainians are like honey badgers. Even if you're a lion, you would not want to go against a honey badger.
Well, and since they've been saying, since Russia invaded, that Russia is the second best army in Ukraine, and now Ukraine has, of course, taken some of Russia's land, making the Russians the second best army in Russia as well. It's really. I was going to say, and so I'll say it. It's got a context I think everybody here is going to understand. It's a joy to watch. It's a joy to see Zelensky taking really a role that Winston Churchill defined. But there hadn't been a leader like Churchill before, and now all of a sudden we've got Zelensky. He is a once in a generation kind of leader, and you see him. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't take it personally, but he doesn't stop. And he is relentless, but he is relentless with grace.